What's going on, guys? Hope you all are having a great day today. So today I'm just making a little video here. I got back from the motocross track and I am working on the Outcast and the Kraton and the Slash. The Slash had just a minor plastic piece break for the body mount. I changed that out already. But I was going to show you real quick what I was doing with the Outcast. I got the shock fixed on it, but I figured I'd start making a video here because I'm going to tear into the Kraton next and find out what broke on it again. I'm sure it's the rear diff, but we're going to find out here, so stay tuned. I was just going to show you how these shocks come apart on the Outcast 6S. A lot different from what I'm used to, so I could play around for a minute. Nothing too difficult at all, but it just was different. They're held on there differently rather than just being screwed. There's actually body posts on them. There is this little plastic piece that has to come off, and the shock bushing just comes right out with it. They're not tight in there like most of them are. So once you get that out, there is a screw that goes in right down there that I already pulled out. But you take that screw out, and then this pin in the back slides out, and then your shock will come out. So I'm going to tear this one open. I'm just changing out the shock oil on the rest of them. I did it on this one already. This was one I broke today, but I'm just going to change out the shock oil on all of them. What I'm putting in these, I believe all the Armas, most of them come with a 30 weight oil in all the shocks. What I'm putting in everything is this TLR 50 weight. This is what I've been using on most of the cars all the time now, and I've been pretty happy with it, so that's what I'm going to throw in the Outcast here. So I'll show you what the shock looks like, tearing apart. Alright, so got the shock off here. Same kind of setup as a lot of them. Pull the spring back. This unhooks out of there. Like that. And then your spring comes off. So this little rubber boot here, I'm not really sure how it's all held on up there, but I don't need to take that off, so I'm not really worried about that. But this was the part I broke on it today, so I just changed this out, and it's all good to go again. But we are going to replace the shock oil in this one. Alright, so what you want to do is grab a hold of the lower section here. There's some places to grab it down there on that red edge there. And what I've been doing is just taking one of my Allen keys, and these are pretty tight, and getting it started off. And then you can unscrew the cap. They're pretty much filled right to the top, just a tiny bit of an air gap at the top. This oil I'm saving just in case I ever need it or want to run something lighter. So I've just been dumping it in this little container right now. Try and get most of the old stuff out of there. And that's pretty much it. So once you get the old stuff out, got the new 50 weight. Fill her up. Gonna fill it up to pretty much the same spot, and then just work it a couple times and make sure that it doesn't suddenly drop or you had any air bubbles in there. It seems to be staying in place pretty well, so we're gonna call that good. Throw the cap back on. Grab a hold of the pliers again. Just get her snug. That is it. And then you just repeat the process. Put the spring back on there. Drop that on there. And these do have a little notch in them. You can see it there. These do have a little notch. You have to line them up. So once you get that in there so it drops the whole way down and seats in there, then it is good to go. But this oil feels a lot better. It's going to get a little more dampening to the shock, so I think I'll be a little happier with this, and it won't land so hard in the future. So we're going to throw this back on. We're going to work on the rest of them. I'm not going to bore you with all of them. I just figured I'd show you one of the shocks and how they come apart. But I'll put you guys back on when I start tearing into the Kraton and we find out what's up with that thing. I just wanted to say, all in all, this Outcast held up really well today. If you see, guys, how I launched that thing today and some of the landings, I mean, that thing was flying. And I'm amazed that the A-arms didn't break. The shock broke because I just landed it bad on top of a mound of dirt and rock that was there whenever I didn't have the bumper and the wing on the back when it snapped off. So that's really not the shock's fault, but I have seen people break these shocks, these ends. They seem a little bit light or small for the size of this thing, but I don't know, I'll see how it holds up in the future. You know, if I have more problems with it, then maybe it is a constant reoccurring issue with it. But all in all, everything else on the car held up great. Nothing else broke, nothing bent. The chassis is still very straight. Nothing happened with that so far. So all in all, real happy with this car, guys. Gonna have a lot of fun with it. I just wish I had my wing mount so I could take this thing back out again soon, but I gotta wait a few days, so part of the game, right, guys? All right, I'll see you guys back when I get the Kraton ripped open. Alrighty, well, I got all the shocks rebuilt on the Outcast. Not really rebuilt, but all the heavier weight oil in all of them, and I got the rear shock fixed on that, so all I need now is the wing support to get that thing finished. So now it is time to move on to the Kraton. This truck has been driving me crazy for months. But we're going to pull the motor and diff out of this thing and see what is broken. Alright guys, we're going to get the Kraton torn apart here. So to get the motor and use slipper clutch and everything out, we're going to take a look at this first and see if it's something in there, but I have a feeling it's in this rear diff. But you want to back out this screw a little bit. You don't have to take it out very far, just a little bit. And then there's a pin you'll see that goes through it, and you slide that out to the side, and that'll allow that to come up out of the side of it. And then you just unscrew it out of here and got your center brace out. Center drive shaft, same. Just slide it to the back, pops out. Always make sure you keep an eye on this bearing too, along with all of them. I put sealed bearings on these, but these will lock up and then they will burn through your center drive shaft, so keep an eye, make sure those are still spinning freely. So once you get the center brace and the center drive shaft out, there's this screw right here right above this little red mark in the frame, which is the part of the battery holder, but it also locks the motor in. Pull that out. And then you can take Phillips head, depending on if they're very stuck, but you just kind of slide it out to the side. Get that out of the way. Disconnect all your motor leads. Now what I usually do, because mine after a while get dirty and stuff builds up in there, and these are hard to slide back sometimes, I take one screwdriver and lightly pull up on this tab, and then with another flathead screwdriver just kind of work it backwards until it is free, and then that is it. But I don't know, the motor feels okay. We'll open this thing up and take a look at it. Alright, so got this thing, got the screws pulled out of it. Just slide out. These are another big one to make sure these bearings are always good and free. Because if they lock up, then your slipper clutch starts spinning and you'll burn through your shaft on the slipper clutch and get a lot of slop and start stripping gears out too. But I had just changed these bearings out the last time I had this apart. But the slipper clutch, banging my head into the camera. The slipper clutch feels okay. You know, there's obviously nothing ripped apart on this thing. So once again, the problem is in the rear differential. So we'll tear into that next. Alright guys, so I just want to show you real quick how I usually tear the bulkheads off. Pull both shock tops off out of the bulkhead. You got to take off the two screws on the top part of the wheelie bar to get access to the camber link screws on the top of the bulkhead. Pull those two out and then remove the back skid plate and the wheelie bar all in one piece, and I'll show you that part next. Alright guys, so once you get your shocks and your camber link screws out of the bulkhead, your wheels will completely be able to fold down like that and get out of the way. Then what you want to do is take that bulkhead screw out. There's a little one here right in the center, very short. I'm guessing that screw just helps hold that bottom skid plate on. Remove that, and then that will come out of the way. You want to pop the brace here off for the hinge pins so it doesn't fall off and you lose it. So then the other two screws down here, pull those out. Come on. Just didn't come out the whole way. So slide those two out, and now you have access to the rear diff. And there it is. And as you can see, every single gear is ripped apart. The drive gears all rounded off. Well, I'm going to tear this thing apart. We'll show you what it looks like. Alright guys, we're going to open up the diff here and see what she looks like. The stock differentials obviously don't have these. These are the hot racing yokes I put on here to hopefully help with this. When I was at the hobby store today, getting some parts and stuff after the motocross track, I was talking to the guy down there that runs the hobby shop for a little bit and explaining to him what's going on with this thing, and he really feels that the clutch still was not set. It was set too stiff. He said this is a big issue with these diffs ripping themselves apart. So I just reset the clutch according to what he said he does with all of them in the shop there, which was cranking it the whole way down tight and doing about just a little bit over of a quarter turn out, and then using red Loctite on it so it doesn't back itself back out again. So that's what I just did. So I'm going to rebuild this thing and we'll give it a try again. At some point, got to make this thing stop breaking, right? So to get into these, you got to take off your drive shafts, obviously. You need a long enough Allen key or wrench, to be able to get down inside here. They are a 2mm. Slide them the whole way down. You'll feel them lock into the screw. And you just back that out until it doesn't want to come out anymore. The screw stays inside the drive shaft, and then these will just slide right off because the screw is built into those. So we'll take those off. I hope somebody's enjoying watching this, maybe getting it useful, or it's not too boring. Alright, so we got those off. So now the yoke should split here. Sometimes you need this flathead and stick underneath here just to kind of get it to pop up off the bearing. There we go. And there is so much plastic ripped off and melted inside of this thing. But yeah, as you can see, the drive gear doesn't look too good. And neither does this. Most of the teeth are pretty much all gone off of the spur gear here. So, alright, well, we're going to tear this thing apart, change out this gear, put a new drive gear in it, and check it out and make sure everything feels good and give this thing get it back together. And guys, just so you know, sometimes on these drive gears, these bearings can really get jammed down on there and they do not want to come back off very easily. Now this one does not feel real hot, and so what I'm going to do is I have two bearings. I got a couple bearing kits from some different companies, and these are sealed bearings, so I'm going to change these stock Arma bearings out with some good sealed bearings this time and throw those in there. These are the two parts you will need. They are AR310872 and AR, this is a weird number. Which one is the actual number? AR310873. This is your input gear and your main diff gear. So these are the two pieces you will need whenever you're changing these out. So let's figure I'd show you those. Now this is probably the worst part of doing this entire job, is having to open up the rear differential. You got these 4 screws here. This cap comes off. You got your gears in there, but it is just a oily, greasy mess, as you will see. It's the part I hate dealing with. And I've been putting in this 100,000 weight diff fluid. It's been stiffening up the diffs a little bit so that they don't slip quite as much. I would think that that might be part of the problem, but this was breaking before I even started doing that, so I don't think that's the issue. So as you can see, this one actually had a lot of it leak out or something here. But anyway, there's a thick oil in there. Fill this up. Maybe I didn't put enough in there the last time. But You got to pull all these gears out and swap them over to the new case, so I'll go ahead and do that now. And make sure you watch, because whenever these go back together, there is a pattern, and they have to go back together that way, or they will not go back together. As you can see when you're looking at it with the two holes on either side like this, you have the gear sitting higher here, and then lower and lower, and it has to go back in that same order. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you remember. Also, remember there is a rubber O-ring down inside there that also has to go in first, and then the washer, and then the shaft in there. Alright, so that's what's all back together. Don't forget your gasket on here also. A lot of times it likes to stick to the old one, but as you can see, everything in there is spinning nice and free, and that's what you want. So you go ahead and just fill this up pretty much the whole way with your diff fluid, and get the gasket on there and put it back together. I'll show you when I get all the fluid in it. Now, if you're using a heavier diff fluid like this, it does take a little bit for it to settle. It's very thick. It's like syrup, molasses. It takes a while for it to settle in there and level out. So you usually got to let it settle for a few minutes and then fill it up again, just so you know. All right, so I got my fluid in there. It's almost filled to the top. I don't know if you can tell, but I got my gasket lined up, and you can see how there's two square edges on either side of that gear, and on the other cap side you have the same thing. So those just have to line up, and it should pop right back together. Sometimes you got to turn the gear a little bit to get it to drop back in. And that is it. Put your 4 screws back in, and we'll get this thing rebuilt. Alright guys, we got our diff all sealed back up, all screws back in it. Feels pretty good. Spins about, as far as how much tension's on there, feels about right, what I've been usually working with. So now we are going to get the input gear set in here and get this thing back together. Feels pretty good. That is it. So, feels nice and smooth. Doesn't feel tight at all. Very easy to turn. It feels like the mesh is pretty decent, pretty good on there like that. So, all right, well, we're going to put the screws back in this and start getting this car back together again. Alright, got all the screws in it. Feels nice and smooth and free. No binding at all. Feels pretty good. So, we're going to go with this. With the clutch set again. Try this setting. Haven't been having very good luck with any of this, but we'll give this a try again. Alright, got the drive shafts back on. Gonna throw a little bit of grease down in here. I also cleaned out all the plastic shavings and pieces that were in the rear end there on the car, but I don't go too crazy with this, just enough to coat everything. I usually throw a little bit down inside the rear end just to keep moisture, and just if it does have anything coming apart, at least it catches it down there. So there she is. It's ready to go back in. Just going to repeat the process we did taking it apart and give this thing a quick test out and see what happens. All right, we got the back end all back together. Can get the drive shafts hooked back up, get all this back together, and should be ready to roll. All righty, got the back end all together. Just gonna throw the motor back in her now and see what happens, I guess. It's always kind of scary. Snaps right back in again. Get your motor hooked back up. Get your brace, part of the battery compartment, back in there. All right, get our center drive shaft back in, maybe. There we go. Get your center brace. Line her back up again. Push this pin. Sometimes it's a little finicky to get lined up. There it goes. Tighten that screw back up, and we are ready to roll. Now, I put some red Loctite on this clutch, and it's probably not dry yet, so I am going to hold off on driving this thing until that's dry. So I will get some footage tomorrow of it when I first test it out and see what happens, but I want to let that Loctite dry up, guys. So that is it for now. So I will talk to you guys tomorrow whenever I get this thing dried and ready to roll. Well, guys, it's the next day. The Loctite is dry, but I threw battery real quick and just wanted to see what it was doing, and the clutch is just slipping crazy. The car barely moves, with it being turned out a quarter of the way. So I'm going to pull this thing back apart again and readjust the slipper clutch, maybe try some new plates in it. I think I might have a couple here, and give this thing a try next. If not, you might see a fire at the end of this video with this thing in it. Well, guys, the Kraton is not getting fixed today, and this video is getting kind of long, and I apologize for that. But I tore this thing apart again and removed every piece out of the slipper clutch, all the screws and washers and stuff. And I noticed something that I should have noticed and didn't notice before, which was the little spring inside the slipper clutch had broken, and it is not the right length anymore. So I just ordered a slipper clutch maintenance kit for this thing to rebuild the whole slipper clutch with the spring and the screw and all the little pieces. And that'll be here in a few days. So hopefully that will take care of it. I imagine it will, because with that spring basically not even really working, that's probably my problem. And that was my own stupidity, but live and learn, right? So that is it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time, y'all, take care of each other out there. Be careful. Peace out, everyone.